They never expected you to rise. They never imagined you'd still be standing. Every scar on your soul was supposed to be a grave. Every wound was meant to be the weight that kept you buried. And for a long time, you believed it. You believed that silence was safety, that shrinking into the background was survival. They built a world around you with walls disguised as expectations, ceilings masked as kindness, doors that only opened if you played by their rules. You learned early that rebellion had consequences, that stepping outside their design came with a price. So you made yourself small. You folded your power into something digestible, something polite. You silenced the rage in your bones, the hunger in your veins. You looked at the world through lowered eyes, speaking in whispers, carrying your own chains, because you thought that was just the way things were. You convinced yourself it was enough to exist, to endure, to make it through another day without making too much noise. You let them define you, and that was the greatest lie of all, because you were never meant to be caged. You were never meant to be tamed, to be placed into the neat little box they prepared for you. They told you to lower your gaze, but your vision was made for horizons beyond their understanding. They tried to clip your wings, but your bones remember the sky. And now, the cracks in your silence are beginning to show. The weight of their expectations no longer fits around your shoulders. The chains they wrapped around you are rusting, weakening, breaking, and you are starting to remember. You are starting to remember who you were before they told you who you should be. You are starting to feel the fire in your chest that they swore would burn you alive. You are beginning to question the stories they fed you, the ones that kept you docile, the ones that made you believe you were powerless. And once you question the story, it loses its power over you. Once you realize the bars of your cage were never locked, you stop obeying the rules that were meant to keep you small. So let me ask you, when did you agree to this? When did you accept their definition of you? When did you decide that your voice didn't matter, that your power was too dangerous to claim? Because that's the thing, they never silenced you. They just convinced you to silence yourself. And now, I am here to tell you the truth you've always known deep down. They are terrified of you. Not of your rage, not of your voice, not even of your strength. No, they are terrified of what happens when you stop believing their lies. They fear the moment you wake up and see through the illusion. Because when you do, when you truly understand what you are capable of, when you take back the power you never actually lost, there will be no stopping you. And they know it. You were never broken, you were never weak, you were never a mistake, a burden, a shadow of someone else's expectations. They wanted you to think you were a ghost drifting unseen, unheard, untouchable. But you are not a ghost. You are a force, a storm that cannot be contained, a wildfire that refuses to be tamed, a legacy waiting to be written in ink too bold for their comfort. Look around you. Look at the world they've built. Look at the systems designed to keep people in their place. The unspoken rules that dictate who gets to speak, who gets to rise, who gets to take up space. This world was never designed for people like you to thrive. It was designed to make you doubt yourself so deeply that you never even try. Because the moment you try, the moment you take a step toward the life that was always meant to be yours, the moment you start to fight for something greater than survival, you become dangerous to them. They see it in you, even when you don't. They have always seen it. That's why they tried to break you before you could recognize it for yourself. That's why they tried to fill you with so much self-doubt that you would never dare to question their authority. They saw the war in your spirit long before you did. They saw the revolution in your veins, the unstoppable tide in your blood. They have spent years trying to convince you that you are powerless, because if you ever realized the truth, they wouldn't stand a chance. And now, here you are, standing at the edge of something vast, something unknown, something terrifying in its immensity. You have two choices. You can close your eyes, pretend you don't see it, retreat into the illusion of safety they built for you, or you can step forward, step into the power that has always been yours, step into the legacy that they never thought you'd claim. But make no mistake, this is not just about you. This is about everyone who came before you, everyone who was silenced before they could take their place, everyone who never got the chance to rise. This is about the ones who were erased, forgotten, buried beneath the weight of history's indifference. And now, it is your turn. Your turn to be the voice that cannot be ignored. Your turn to be the storm that reshapes the landscape. Your turn to be the justice they never thought you'd deliver. Because justice is not something you wait for. It is not something handed to you by those who benefit from your silence. Justice is something you take. It is something you create with every choice you make, with every step you take toward your own power. It is something you become when you refuse to bow, when you refuse to disappear, when you refuse to let them write your story for you. This is your story now. Not theirs, not the one they wanted you to believe, not the one they tried to force upon you. This story belongs to you. And the moment you take control of it, the moment you decide that you are done waiting for permission, the moment you stop apologizing for your existence, that is the moment the world changes. So, I ask you again, are you ready? Ready to let go of the lies, the fear, the version of yourself that was never yours to begin with? Ready to claim your place, your power, your right to be everything they said you couldn't be? Because this is your awakening. This is your reckoning. This is the beginning of something unstoppable. And no one, not them, not the past, not the fear that still lingers in your bones, can take this moment from you. You were never meant to be forgotten. You were meant to be a force so undeniable, so relentless, so unshakable that history itself would have no choice but to remember your name. And it starts now. It starts with you. They don't see the weight you carry. They don't hear the battles waged in the silence of your mind, the wars that leave no visible wounds but tear through you all the same. They don't know the nights you've spent staring at the ceiling, wondering if this is all life will ever be, this hollow echo of existence, this endless repetition of pain wrapped in different disguises. They don't know what it's like to wake up every day and feel like you're running in circles, fighting ghosts that refuse to die, reaching for something just beyond your grasp. But I know how heavy it is to carry the echoes of every not enough that's ever been thrown at you. I know how easy it is to believe them when the world has spent years engraving their lies into your skin, carving their expectations into your soul until you mistake them for truth. I know how exhaustion settles into your bones, when every step forward is met with resistance, when every time you gather the strength to rise, something or someone is there to shove you back down. They told you to be grateful, grateful for what little space they allowed you to take, grateful for the bare minimum, for the scraps of kindness tossed your way like leftovers from a table you were never invited to sit at. They told you that wanting more was selfish, that fighting for your voice, for your power, for your place in this world was a burden too heavy for others to bear, and so you folded yourself into something smaller, something quieter. You wore their labels like a second skin, carried their expectations like a debt you owed to a world that never intended to repay you. And still, it was never enough. No matter how much you sacrificed, no matter how much of yourself you buried to fit their mold, it was never enough. And no matter how much of yourself you buried to fit their mold, because the truth is, they were never satisfied with your silence. They needed your surrender. They needed you to believe, down to the marrow of your bones, that you were powerless, that you were destined to play the background role in a life that was never truly yours. But let me tell you something. The only reason they worked so hard to keep you small is because they saw what you could become. They saw the fire in you long before you recognized it yourself. They saw the storm beneath your skin, the force waiting to break free, the power that would one day shake the ground they stand on. And they were afraid. So they tried to put out the fire before it could spread. They tried to convince you that you were nothing more than your failures, your rejections, your worst days, strung together like a noose around your potential. They fed you doubts until you swallowed them whole, until you couldn't tell the difference between their voices and your own. They made you fear your own reflection, whispering that the person staring back at you was not enough, would never be enough. And maybe you believed them. Maybe you still do. Maybe every mistake, every moment of hesitation, every time you back down when you should have stood your ground feels like proof that they were right. Maybe you've spent so long inside the cage they built around you that you forgot what freedom even looks like. But listen to me. This cage is not unbreakable. These chains are not permanent. And this prison you've been living in, you built it. Brick by brick, lie by lie, every time you let fear decide your fate, every time you chose silence over truth, every time you convinced yourself that tomorrow would be the day you finally start living. But tomorrow never came, did it? Because hesitation is a slow death. The longer you wait, the deeper the roots of doubt grow, the more comfortable the cage becomes. And before you know it, the idea of breaking free feels more terrifying than the thought of staying trapped. That's how they win. Not by force, not by change you can see, but by convincing you that the key to your own freedom does not exist. But what if I told you it does? What if I told you that every moment you've spent doubting yourself, every time you let fear hold you back, every piece of yourself you buried to make others comfortable, those were not signs of weakness. They were fuel. Fuel for the war that is coming. Because this is not where your story ends. This is not where you stay. You do not exist to be a monument to suffering, a relic of potential never realized. You are not here to watch from the sidelines while life passes you by. You are here to fight, to reclaim every piece of yourself that was stolen, to tear down the walls built to contain you, to rewrite the narrative they forced upon you. And if you think you are not strong enough, let me remind you, you have already survived everything they swore would break you. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every whispered doubt, Every time you were counted out and underestimated, and yet you are still here, still breathing, still standing. Do you understand what that means? It means they were wrong about you. It means the weight you carry is not proof of your defeat. It is proof of your resilience. And that resilience, that is the very thing they fear. Because once you understand the depth of your own power, once you see through their illusions, once you decide that you are done waiting for permission to rise, there is nothing they can do to stop you. So tell me, are you ready to stop carrying this weight as a burden and start using it as a weapon? Because the time for hesitation is over. The time for shrinking, for silence, for letting them dictate your worth is over. You have spent long enough inside this prison of doubt, this cycle of fear, this endless repetition of waiting. Now you burn it down. Now you fight. Now you take back what was always yours. This is the moment you stop being their victim and start being your own hero. And I promise you, when you do, the world will never be the same again. How many times have you thought about walking away? How many nights have you whispered to the darkness, I can't do this anymore? How many mornings have you woken up feeling like the weight of existence is heavier than your will to carry it? There are moments in life when the fight seems impossible, when it feels like you've been running towards something that keeps getting further away. You tell yourself to push forward, but with every step, the ground beneath you crumbles. Every battle leaves another scar, every failure another wound that refuses to close. And after a while, the exhaustion isn't just in your body, it's in your soul. No one tells you how hard it is to keep going when there's no proof that things will get better. No one warns you that doubt doesn't just creep in, it takes root. It settles into your bones, whispering all the things you swore you wouldn't believe. You're not strong enough, you're too late. You don't deserve justice. The words haunt you because they sound like the truth, because they align with the pain you've felt, with the failures you've endured, with the moments where life seemed to prove them right. Every rejection, every loss, every time you tried and fell short, it all becomes evidence against you. A cruel, relentless reminder that maybe this fight isn't yours to win. You start to question everything. What if the people who doubted you were right? What if the world is telling you to stop for a reason? What if all of this, the struggle, the pain, the endless war inside your mind, is a sign that you were never meant to rise? And for a moment, just one moment, you consider surrendering. Because no one talks about how tempting it is to give up. No one talks about how easy it would be to let go, to stop fighting, to sink into the quiet relief of not trying anymore. You imagine what it would feel like to stop pushing, to stop hoping, to stop believing that you were made for more. You imagine setting down the weight you've carried for so long, letting the world continue without you, and for the first time in a long time, there is a moment of silence. But that silence isn't peace, it is emptiness. Because deep down, beneath the exhaustion, beneath the doubts, beneath the pain that has threatened to consume you, there is still something left. It is small, it is quiet, but it is there, a flicker of something that refuses to die, a whisper of defiance, a heartbeat that refuses to stop, a part of you that will not be erased no matter how much you've suffered. Because here's the truth they never told you. Your pain has not made you weak, it has made you powerful. The nights you thought would break you, the ones where you screamed into the void, the ones where you fell apart, the ones where you doubted your own worth, they made you unbreakable. We don't get to choose, do we? A day is meant to be felled. When she thinks longer, the crowd is fully hailed, off at penciling to make a verse. The scars they told you to be ashamed of, they are proof that you survived. The battles you lost, they were lessons that sharpened your strength. The moments you almost gave up, they did not destroy you, they shaped you. Do you understand what that means? It means you were never supposed to quit. It means that every time you stood back up when life knocked you down, every time you found the strength to take one more step, every time you chose to believe in yourself, even when doubt screamed in your ears, you were proving them wrong. What if your suffering wasn't the end? What if it was the beginning of something greater? Because the ones who rise, the ones who rewrite the story, the ones who break the cycle, the ones who deliver the justice they were never meant to give, they are not the ones who had it easy. They are not the ones who never doubted, never struggled, never bled for what they believed in. They are the ones who almost gave up but didn't. And now, you have a choice. You can let the weight of your doubts pull you under. You can let them convince you that this is where your story ends. Or you can rise, not despite your suffering, but because of it. You are not too weak, you are not too late, and you sure as hell do not need permission to claim what is already yours. Because this pain, it is not your prison, it is your fuel. Something shifts. It isn't loud, it isn't a dramatic explosion or some grand revelation handed down from the heavens. No, it's something small, subtle, but it's enough. A flicker, a whisper, a thought so quiet it almost goes unnoticed. What if they were wrong about me? It's not a declaration, not yet. It's not an act of war or a battle cry. It is a seed, small, buried deep, but alive. And once it's planted, it cannot be ignored. Because if they were wrong about you, then what else? What if you were not broken? What if you were never meant to live in the shadows? What if you were never meant to live in the shoes? What if you were meant to live? What if you were never meant to live in the shoes? What if your story isn't over, but just beginning? The thought takes root, it grows, and suddenly the walls around you, the ones you thought were unbreakable, start to look like something else, something weaker, something fragile. Because what are these walls really made of? Lies. Lies they told you to keep you in your place. Lies that convinced you that power belonged to someone else. Lies that made you believe you had to shrink, to obey, to accept whatever the world decided you were worth. But now you see it, now you know. And once you see the lie, you can never unsee it. This is where everything changes, because for the first time, you refuse. You refuse to carry their shame. You refuse to believe their words. You refuse to let their definition of you be the one that sticks. This is the moment you decide that you will not go quietly, because they want you silent. They want you small. They want you to doubt yourself so deeply that you never even try. But they have underestimated you. They mistook your hesitation for weakness. They mistook your silence for submission. They mistook your pain for defeat, and that is their mistake to regret, because you are not just surviving anymore. You are fighting back, not with their weapons, not by playing their game. No, you are rewriting the entire narrative. You are taking everything they used to break you and turning it into your foundation. You are using the wounds they inflicted as armor. You are turning every doubt, every failure, every scar into proof of your resilience. To scorn fate into approval of your resilience, because that's the truth, isn't it? You are still here. Despite everything, despite all the ways they tried to bury you, you are still breathing. And as long as you are breathing, you are still a threat to everything they built to keep you down. And that is power. Because now you know, pain is not your enemy. It never was. Pain was your teacher, your forge, your sharpening stone. The fire they tried to extinguish, it was never meant to be put out. It was meant to burn through every single thing that tried to contain you. They wanted you weak. Instead, they made you relentless. They wanted you broken. Instead, they made you unshakable. And now, there is no stopping you. Because this is just the beginning. Enough. That's the word that rises in your chest, pushing past every doubt, every hesitation, every excuse you've ever made for staying small. Enough of waiting. Enough of breaking yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold you. Enough of giving away your power like it was never yours to begin with. This is not the part where you hesitate. This is not the part where you second guess your own worth. This is the part where you rise. Not because it's easy, not because the road ahead will be smooth, but because you refuse to stay where you've been. You've spent too long waiting for the world to change, waiting for an open door, waiting for someone to hand you permission to be everything you were meant to be. But no one is coming to save you. No one is going to grant you the justice they never intended to give you. No one is going to wake up one day and decide that you are finally worthy. No one is going to look at you and say, now is your time, because that is not how this works. You do not wait for your time, you take it, and that starts now. From this moment forward, you are no longer begging for a seat at their table. You are no longer knocking at their doors, hoping someone hears you. You are no longer asking for validation from people who were never meant to define you. You are building your own empire, brick by brick, scar by scar, battle by battle, because every hardship, every failure, every dark moment you've endured, it was never proof of your weakness. It was the fire that forged you. Every scar is a lesson. Every heartbreak is a lesson. Every time you were knocked down and forced to crawl back up, a lesson. And now, those lessons are your weapons. Because resilience isn't just about survival. It's about transformation. It's about taking everything that was meant to break you and turning it into fuel. It's about refusing to let your past define you, refusing to let your pain be your prison, refusing to let anyone, not them, not your doubts, not your own fears, tell you who you are. They wanted you broken. They wanted you quiet. They wanted you to accept the limits they placed on you. But they do not get to write your story. This is where you take the pen back. This is where you decide that you will no longer be a character in someone else's narrative. This is where you fight. Not for approval, not for permission, not for the right to exist. You fight because this is your life, your power, your justice to claim. You fight because every second you stay silent is another second they win. You fight because you are no longer waiting, because the rise has already begun. It happens when you least expect it, just when you think you've broken free, just when the fire in your chest starts to burn steady, Just when the road ahead begins to look clear, doubt returns. Not as a whisper this time, not as a distant voice in the back of your mind. It comes as a storm. It crashes into you without warning, dragging you back into the shadows you swore you had left behind. Suddenly, every step forward feels unsteady again. The weight of the past, the voices, the failures, the ghosts, they all come rushing back, pulling at you, trying to reclaim you. And for a moment you hesitate, because this fight, this war within yourself, it is exhausting. The temptation to stop, to retreat, to tell yourself that maybe you were never meant to win this battle. It creeps in like a thief, stealing the fire you fought so hard to ignite. What if you can't do this? What if the past is stronger than you? What if they were right about you all along? And then, in the midst of that storm, you find yourself standing in front of the one person you cannot escape, yourself. The reflection in the mirror is no longer a stranger, no longer the version of you that shrank in the face of fear, no longer the person who waited for permission to exist. This is the moment of truth, because you can either let the past reclaim you, or you can burn it down once and for all. No more running, no more hiding, no more waiting. It's time to decide. Are you willing to leave the past behind? Are you ready to finally let go of the doubt that has kept you caged? Because once you cross this threshold, there is no going back. And the truth, you don't want to go back. You never did, because the person you were, the one who accepted less, who stayed silent, who let fear dictate their choices, they no longer exist. This is your moment. Not to prove them wrong, not to erase the past, but to reclaim everything that was always meant to be yours. From this point forward, you own your story, and no one, not the past, not the doubt, not the ones who tried to break you, can take it from you again. Look at you. Look at what you've become. Not just a survivor, not just someone who made it through, not just a person who endured. No, you are more than that. You are a force, a fire, a name they will not forget. You are the storm they swore would never come, the reckoning they never prepared for, the reality they refused to believe in, and yet, here you stand, breathing, thriving, unshaken. They thought they buried you, thought they had won, thought they had broken you down so completely that you would never rise again. But you were never meant to stay buried. You were meant to rise from the ashes. You were meant to take every scar, every wound, every whispered doubt and turn it into something unstoppable. And now, you are not just fighting for yourself, you are building your legacy. Because your story is not just about you. It never was. It is about everyone who never got the chance to rise. It is about those who came before you, those who fought but never got to see the victory. It is about every person who was silenced, erased, forgotten. But you will not be forgotten. Because every step you take forward is a reminder that justice is real, that power can be reclaimed, that the world does not belong to those who seek to control it. It belongs to those brave enough to take their place in it. Your existence is proof that they failed, proof that they could not erase you, proof that their fear was justified. Because you are everything they were afraid you'd become. The one who does not bend, the one who does not yield, the one who rewrote the script they tried to hand you. This is your final transformation. This is where you stop proving yourself to anyone. This is where you stop explaining, stop justifying, stop waiting for them to understand. Because they will never understand. And they don't need to. Because whether they accept it or not, you have already won. Your rise is the justice they never thought they'd have to face. Your success is the retribution they never saw coming. Your very presence is a disruption to the system that was built to keep you small. But you are not small. You were never small. And now, you are free. Free from the weight of their expectations, free from the limits they placed on you, free from the past that once held you hostage. This is not the end of your story. This is where it truly begins, because the world will remember your name, and nothing will ever silence you again. So now what? Now that you know the truth, what will you do with it? Now that you have seen through the lies, shattered the illusion, and burned down the limits they placed on you. What comes next? Because power without action is wasted. Knowledge without movement is meaningless. You have come too far to stop now. You have risen from the ashes, walked through the fire, broken every chain that tried to hold you down. But the question remains, what will you do with your freedom? Because legacy is not about survival. It is not about simply making it through, about proving them wrong just for the sake of revenge. Legacy is about impact. It is about taking every battle you have fought, every lesson you have learned, and using it to change the world around you. Because the world is watching. Not just those who doubted you, not just those who underestimated you, the ones who need you are watching too. The ones still trapped in the lies, still weighed down by the doubt, still waiting for permission to rise. They are watching, and they need to see you step forward. They need to see you own your power, because if you can do it, so can they. Your rise is not just your own. Your voice is not just your own. Your justice is not just your own. Your justice is not just your own. It is for every single person who was told they were not enough. It is for every soul that was made to feel invisible. You are not just one. You are the beginning of something greater, a movement, a force, a shift, in the very foundation of everything they tried to keep the same. So again, I ask you, what will you do with this power? Will you let it sit inside you, unclaimed? Will you wait for another moment, another chance, another lifetime, or will you act? Because this is not just a story, this is not just words, this is your life. And every moment you hesitate is a moment lost. Every second you wait is a second they win. And you know the truth now. You know who you are. You know what you were meant for. You know that everything they did to break you was really just shaping you into something unstoppable. So let them watch. Let them see what they tried to destroy. Let them witness the power they swore you'd never claim. Let them understand they lost. Because you will not be forgotten. You will not be erased. You will not shrink or fold or disappear into the background like they always expected you to. Your legacy is not a whisper. It is a roar, and it will be heard because they tried to silence you. They tried to erase you, but your legacy will be the justice they never thought you'd deliver.